Well, welcome everyone to TMI Advice You Didn't Want. Today we're going to be diving into the how to of how to actually have a happy life and have a life that you're blissfully excited about. You don't need a vacation from. You feel like you're always on vacation and you're actually enjoying every single moment. My name is Karin Angelly, in case we haven't met. And this honestly is probably one of my favorite subjects, and I could talk about this all day, every day.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Well, because that's what you want. Everyone
yeah,
wants to have a wonderful life.
yeah,
And I literally, right before we started, I thought about this and I am going to throw a curveball at you.
do
It's
it.
it's perfect timing. I was just looking at the schedule of when this podcast is going to launch, and it's going to launch 2 days before the new year.
Ah, perfect.
And
And by the
so,
way, my co-host is Ashley. She
oh,
didn't introduce herself on the last podcast or this one, and I feel like I need to introduce her. So,
I'm just throwing curveballs and too excited to jump in.
I love it. I'm
To say who
excited
I
for
am.
it.
Um, yeah, so I was just looking at that. I'm like, what, like the perfect time to talk about how to love your life
Yeah.
right before a new year. And that to me, there's just so much more like wonderfulness around that.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so I'm one of those people that loves New Year's and New Year's resolutions. I know
mhm.
there's so many haters. But yeah, anyways, we can dive into how to have a great new year and love your life.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I don't think I knew for
Mhm,
years how to actually
mhm,
have a happy life. I thought I was happy. And I look back and I'm like, I was totally missing the boat. I was
mhm,
actually reading something today, somebody's story of this whole process that I wanted to share because I was like, yeah, that was my life too. She had everything on the outside. Everything was like picture perfect. She was a lawyer, made a lot of money. Her husband made a lot of money. They had like the white picket fence life, like everything was perfect, right? But she found herself at one point, she's over the stove and she's just mindlessly stirring this pot for dinner, like stirring this pot of whatever. I don't even know what. She didn't say, but she's mindlessly stirring this pot and she's just thinking about how much she hates her life.
mm,
Like just in this place of just complete, this sucks. I have
mhm.
everything looking on the outside. You would think that I have everything and that I've got it going on.
Yep.
But inside, I just feel so empty. And she said that she noticed out of the corner of her eye, her child was doing the same thing that she was. So, same countenance, was stirring a pot in the same way. And she said she looked over at her kid and she's like, yeah, just like mommy. And she's making this joke. Yeah, you're just like mommy doing the same thing. And she thought it was funny until she like doubled over in pain because she's like, oh my God, I don't feel good. Like something happened to her in that moment. And her
Mhm.
child she saw do the exact same thing that she was doing. And she realized after all of that happened, she's like, I'm literally teaching my child how to be miserable, how
Mhm.
to have a crappy life,
Yeah.
how to not enjoy all the things that I have around me. Because she's literally manifested and created, in all intents and purposes, an amazing life, but she hated it. And I
Yeah.
know I was there at one point too,
Mhm.
because I had manifested this life where on the outside it looked awesome. Like
Mhm.
I very successful in my career doing anesthesia. And then as I like once I got into the entrepreneurial world, very successful in my business. Um, but I still didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like there was like this hole, and like in the Christian community, they would call it the God-shaped hole. But I'm like, I had God, but how come I was still miserable? Like
Mhm.
that's where I found myself. And I don't know if you relate to this at all,
Mhm.
Ashley.
Yeah, for sure. And like part of it was like, oh, you're supposed to just fully rely on God and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And while yes, everything is going to be okay, um there was a lot of space for scarcity and a lot of space for unhappiness,
Hmm.
because that wasn't for our lifetime, it was for the next life.
Yes.
And yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, so that's funny that you say that because we had like so Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses are known for coming door to door, and we had Mormons recently come to our door. And I just was listening because I'm like, I'm not going to be rude, but I'm just going to listen and let them do their thing. And one of the questions that the guy asked me was, because he was reading from his Book of Mormon and he was talking about how Jesus was the Prince of Peace. And he
Mhm.
looked at me after he read it and he was like, "What does that mean to you?" And I was like, "I don't know. What does it mean to you?" And he kind of got really uncomfortable and he's like, "Well, um, I personally believe that that means that in the next lifetime," and I caught him saying that, in the next lifetime, I'm going to have peace.
Mhm.
And that is like a dagger to my soul that
Mhm.
those are the things that Christians or people in general are looking at. Like they're so focused on this next event or this next lifetime or this next whatever that
Yeah.
they're missing the right now of
Mhm.
what's happening. And they're
Mhm.
missing the whole process of what's currently happening in their life. And it's literally robbing them
Yeah.
of the joy that they've currently created in their life. It's so sad.
Well, and they say like, well, I have the joy of Jesus in my heart. Like that's like the saying is I have that. But also biblically it promotes meekness and suffering and like Paul being in jail and martyrs. Like I remember probably way too young in my life, reading Jesus Freaks of all these people that died in the name of God and
Yeah.
how that's what you like, that's the best thing that you could do, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, no, thank you. Like, no, I can be happy right now with or without Jesus, and
Hmm.
I don't have to wait for that. And honestly, I believe the message that Jesus came here to say is that it's about where your heart is. Like, if you're present, you, um, if you are present and you focus on the good, you will have a life that you love. And I really believe that that is what he did. So he didn't have a lot of stuff, but he was present with the people that mattered, and he stood up for the things that were negative or toxic and all that kind of stuff. And there is something about also that good fight that does bring you happiness and purpose as well. And so I believe that is really the message he came for, is how to have heaven on earth right now, and that
Yes.
there is no second coming, like at all. Never will. I believe that there is a new earth, but that is as we all wake up to the reality of having the heaven on earth.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I think that that's the huge missing. And I want to kind of point back to what you were saying because you like perfectly talked about the how to have a happy life. And it was just being present
Mhm.
in the current moment. And
Mhm.
then I don't know that you specifically said this, but having like, to me, it's like the gratitude
Yeah.
of the present moment too. Like,
Mhm.
so many people are looking for something outside of them too to make them
Yeah.
happy, and they forget that they literally have everything they need inside of them. They already
Mhm.
have the keys to heaven and hell inside their heart, depending on how they feel in that present moment. Are
Yeah.
you literally like, are you like that woman who is stirring the pot, feeling miserable, feeling poor me for myself?
Mhm.
And then demonstrating to your children what it looks like to be miserable and literally showing your children that
Mhm.
it's okay even to have a miserable life and that that's part of your existence. I think
Yeah.
that that is one of the biggest missteps
Mhm.
of like unfortunately parenting. And here's the thing, I'm not a parent, so I'm not here to condemn, I'm not here to whatever, but I think like as an aunt, I'm always looking at how do I show my niece how to enjoy the present moment. And I'm asking her questions to kind of get her back into the present moment, because she'll be talking about, oh, I can't wait till we do XYZ next week. And it's like, well, what about what we're doing right now? And I'll always ask her too, like, what was your favorite thing about what you're doing now? Like, what is your favorite thing? Like, we're doing this thing. What do you love about it? And she will be able to talk about it. Like, that is probably one of the simplest ways
Yeah.
to get yourself back into the present moment, asking yourself, what do you love about what you're doing right now? In
Well, and that's the thing. Most adults can't do that. So how are they going to
exactly.
teach their kids that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And like I'm in like a mom's group, and there's so many parents that are like, my kid needs a counselor, my kid has ADHD, my kid is struggling in school, my kid is starting to worry about being fat and she's only 9, like all
Uh,
this kind of stuff. And it's just like, this is where my personal beliefs, which is really hard as someone that has their kids only half the time, is get the kids off of the fucking screens and get involved in their life to know what they're consuming. And secondly, feed them positivity and be a good example for
mm,
them of like
yeah,
being happy yourself.
yeah.
And so my daughter this week broke down and had a tearful conversation with me about how she feels like if is purposely choosing herself. So if she decides to do something that's going to make her happy, and it is something that her mom or her friends don't want her to do, she is purposely being mean to them.
Mm,
And so trying to help her like differentiate that is there's a very big difference from being a people pleaser and doing everything for everyone and being kind and making sure you're happy first.
yeah.
That is like, holy cow, trying to pull those two things apart for her brain. Like, and so we had a very long conversation about how to make yourself happy and how happy people, it doesn't fucking matter what happens. So I said, you make me happy. You make me frustrated. You make me mad. And I didn't even word it like that. I said, things that you do make me happy. Things that you do make me frustrated. And sorry, I'm using two specific words that I'm very conscious of when I talk to her, that I'm explaining on this podcast wrong. I really try to never say you make me. So,
Mm, yeah.
or things you do. So
Yeah.
it's things you do, not you,
Yeah.
because who you are as a person and what you do are two different things.
Absolutely.
And um, no one can make me anything but me. So when I did talk to her, I did not say those two things, and I just said them now, but that's not what I actually said to
That's
her.
not what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm happy always. And things that you do, I can feel more happy with. And things that you do, I can feel more frustrated with. Same with your dad. Things that he does, I feel happy with, and things that he does, I feel frustrated with. But at the end of the day, I love me and I am happy. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter what anyone else does around me. And she could not grasp that concept. And she's like, how do you do that?
Mhm.
And so I text Karen, I'm like, what the fuck do I say?
Yeah.
What do
What do I say to this 9-year-old that's trying to figure out how to be happy? So,
Yeah.
now that this comes up, I'm so glad this is a perfect segue, because I was like, let's break down
Mhm.
more of the process of how to be happy. So I'd love for you to like break down what you did specifically to get you into a place where you're like, I fucking love my life. Like,
Mhm.
this is what I wanted in my life. So what did you do?
Yeah. Well, it's so hard. And that when she asked me that question, I was like, there's so many moving parts. There's so
Yeah.
much mentors and learning and subconscious work that came to be. And that's where it's really hard to teach and duplicate, because there's so much of it is on a subconscious level. And so when I thought about it to her, to teach her, I'm like, what is the fundamental thing? like when it really comes down to it, to being happy. And so one is being present, but the second, and so I think it's three things. So being present and then loving and accepting yourself as you are.
Mhm.
And then third is gratitude. I think those are the three things that's all you need, and you can be blissful. Everything
Yeah,
else, all the fucking crazy situations, money, all of it, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You need gratitude, presence, and loving yourself. And so, going back
absolutely.
to something we talked about really early on in our podcast, is Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life.
Mhm.
And I think even for this, that book and The Power of Now are two of the best books to teach you how to be happy.
Mhm.
And so one of the things she does is a mirror exercise where you look yourself in the mirror and you say, I love you and I accept you just the way you are. And
Mhm.
you're saying it to yourself. And she says, most adults can't
Can't.
do it.
Mhm.
They will not do it. They will not make eye contact with themselves in the mirror, and they will not say I love you to themselves or
Mhm.
accept you just the way you are. And to me, that is unbelievable. Like,
That's unbelievable to me too. It's so sad. So
I
sad.
know, I can't imagine hating myself that much that I couldn't do it.
No.
And no judgment to the people that are in that place, because most of you probably are. And I
Yeah.
am very grateful that I was raised, or I became who I am in a way where I have, for most of my life, been very confident and very in love with myself. It did make this process easier.
Yeah.
But that is the starting ground. Like the very first piece before being present or being grateful is you loving yourself. Like
Mhm.
you can't really be grateful for outside things outside of yourself if you don't love yourself. Like
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter. Even if you're present in the present moment, but you don't love yourself, you're hating the present moment. So it really doesn't matter. The first thing you have to do is love yourself. And so being able to look yourself in the mirror, it might make you cry. It might make you want to punch yourself. Like, like
Yeah.
honestly, like I have had people say that they get angry, so angry and so full of hatred towards themselves that they hit themselves.
Mm.
And or like bodily harm. Like I had friends in grade 8 that would cut themselves. I have adult friends that were in their early 30s that would self-harm because they were so miserable. Um, like these are, and like as I say these things, like there's no judgment. It's just this is a reality of how much self-loathing there is. And self-loathing comes in other ways too, like emotional eating or alcoholism or drugs or choosing really toxic relationships. There's a lot of other ways that we can create those self-loathing aspects of ourselves. And so the first thing is to love yourself. And so I have written on the mirrors that for the kids so that they can look in the mirror and read it to themselves.
Mhm.
And so they can start understanding to love themselves. And I think that they're going to have a pretty easy time at that because of the love that we give them and the affirmations that we already do with them and all of that kind of stuff. And I think as adults, it's a lot harder
It
because we have a
is.
lot more
Trauma.
training on
Mhm.
how to hate ourselves and hate our life. And we have a lot of us suffer with unrealistic expectations of ourselves. And if we don't meet those expectations, there's self-loathing. Um, so that it really, to love your life, you have to love yourself.
Yourself. Yeah.
And a lot of people think they like who they are, but they have too much hatred and anger to truly be at that place. Like
Yeah.
it's this core feeling of just so much love and gratitude and knowing who you are and loving that.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. Like a lot of us don't have that love for ourselves. And
Mhm.
anytime I mention to somebody doing mirror work, like what you just said, I
Mhm.
get some funny faces because they're like, wait, I have to do what? And how long do I have to do it? And I have to look myself in the eye. And there's like this level of embarrassment, uncomfortable, shame, because there's going to be a lot of these feelings that come up when you look at yourself in the eye like that because you haven't been facing them. And I would almost say that loving yourself and being present with yourself can almost go hand in hand because
Oh, sure.
in
Mhm.
order to do this, you have to be present. And
Mhm.
for me, like you mentioned, like I didn't have trouble with this. This wasn't something that was difficult for me. The first time someone mentioned it to me, I was like, okay, I can do that. That sounds great. And I do that on a regular basis, actually, where I'll look myself in the eye in the mirror and just be like, I fucking love you, Karen. You're a cool person.
Yeah.
And I've done it so much that it's become a habitual thing.
Mhm.
In a like even when I'm having like this negative thought or feeling that somebody maybe they have said something about me and I've taken it on myself, because it's been such a habit to look myself in the eye or in the mirror, and do this, I will have those moments with myself where somebody will say something to me and I'll look at myself in the mirror and be like, that's not true, right? You're a cool person. And I'll have
Mhm.
those pep talks with myself. So that was, like you said, that wasn't a difficult thing for me. What was difficult for me was getting into the present moment. For
Mhm.
me, slowing down was not a concept that I even understood to be a part of my world.
Yeah.
Like, and you're laughing because you're probably feeling the same way.
Yeah.
But like for me, if I wasn't doing something at all hours of the day, then I wasn't productive, and I'm putting air quotes up. If I wasn't productive, then I was lazy. And
Mm.
that was like not okay, you know? And so for me, being in the present moment was not something that I fully understood. And it was to the extent that I created this massive anxiety for myself in my
Mhm.
life. And it was like, just it would pop up in the weirdest times that I would get anxious because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
nothing's happening. I
Mhm.
shouldn't feel anxious, but I'm like literally anxious over the top right now over nothing. And it's because
Mhm.
I trained my body to feel that way over and over and over again. And now my body is going, I'm in charge. So
Mhm.
normally you're supposed to have an anxiety attack at 9 a.m. So we're going to give you an anxiety attack at 9 a.m. because now my body is in charge. And so that's a result of not being able to get into the present moment.
Mhm.
And one of the best things that I did for myself to teach myself how to be comfortable, because I don't think I was comfortable with being in the present moment, was to meditate.
Yeah.
And I continue to meditate because it's like this continual reminder to myself,
Mhm.
to get back into the present moment and go, okay, wait a minute. Like it's okay
Yeah.
to not do anything but sit here and just enjoy your life. And I've
Mm.
done it so much, I've practiced this so much that I literally today I'm sitting in my car and I'm just thinking to myself, God, I have the best life. And it like nothing's happened. It's literally the opposite of the anxiety attack, right? The anxiety attack would just come up out of nowhere and I'd be like, I shouldn't feel anxious, but I feel anxious.
Mhm.
Now I've trained my body so much to be in the present moment and just enjoy my life and
Mhm.
be, just be and love myself and be that in that present moment that I've now trained my body to be like, man, I love them. I love my life. And so
Mhm.
now instead of at 9 a.m. having an anxiety attack, 9 a.m. I'm now having a I fucking love my life attack. Like, who doesn't want that? And it's all about training yourself to feel that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And really it does come down to what are the thoughts that you're thinking right now? And this is what it means to be present, to notice the thoughts that you're thinking that are actually creating the reality that you're seeing in your world. And
Yeah. Are you
that
are you thinking about what's going to happen in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 years? or what happened 10 minutes ago, 10 days ago, 10 years ago? Or are you taking in right now? And as
Absolutely.
I am a thinker, I think all the time about 100 things at once. And so that was an interesting concept for me to quiet my mind. And that's where, for you, meditation
Yep.
has done that. Um, and for me, I was someone that I fucking loved myself, but I thought and was trained that I had to be a high achiever for other
Mm-hmm.
people to love me.
Same.
And so that was a really negative aspect of my life. And so I had a lot of success. I was very good at school. I had a lot of friends. Like it was, I had like the typical life of I had the money and I had the friends. So,
Mm-hmm.
success,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I did not know how to be present because I was always in where am I going? What's the next achievement? And I was driven for that. And then I got hit by a truck and I
Mm.
couldn't move or walk for months. And I got hit in the biggest month of the year for my company.
Mm.
And so it was, I basically made in 1 month what I made almost the entire year. And
Mm.
I got put out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a brain injury. I couldn't walk. I was completely out of commission. I like there was no hope for me to even attempt to do something. And so I had to accept that and accept that I didn't have to achieve and I couldn't achieve. And that's really what pushed me through all of those emotions and healing because I was in a place where I didn't have an option. Um, and I still had people around me and I still had people loving me and all of that kind of stuff. And so it was a really great way to learn that lesson. Um, and so that's kind of what taught me how to be
Mm.
present and just relax. But I definitely had a lot of anxiety attacks through that process, especially with not being able to take care of myself or bath myself or feed myself or
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So and then with a brain injury, anxiety attacks. So it definitely was a long, hard process, but it was also accelerated because it was forced on me. So that was like
Mm.
the silver lining of it all. Um, and for me, my favorite exercise is grounding.
Mm.
Whether I'm outside, which is best, outside barefoot on the grass,
Yeah.
or not. If I'm sitting down, I just uncross my legs and plant my feet, and I envision my feet going into the ground and spreading and taking root. And I envision if there is trees around me, them. If not, I envision trees around going down too, and all of it connecting. And so not only am I grounded by myself, I'm grounded by all the trees. And I envision that, and I envision it like me growing up and energetically blossoming. And for me, that is a visual and an energetic practice that helps me ground and be present. And that's more so what I do because I'm
Mhm.
not a meditator. So
Yeah. And that's fine because that at the end of the day, that's a visualization. Like you're visualizing what you
yeah.
want, and there's definitely nothing wrong. Here's the thing, like there's no right or wrong way
Oh, for
to
sure.
get into the present moment or to love yourself.
Mhm.
For me, the reason that I'll always meditate is because um, I have discovered that it unwinds emotional things that I didn't even know were there to unwind.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like this like backdoor. I didn't know I
Mhm.
needed to work on that. Oh, okay. I'll work on that while I'm meditating and not even know that I'm doing it until it's done. And it's like, and then it's shown to me later that it's like, okay, that was done. And I'm like, holy shit. So like, there's just, for me, it's like it's a magical process that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing it because I have just experienced so much unwinding without
Mhm.
having like without having the specific intention to unwind that particular thing. Like there's always an intention to unwind emotional traumas that I don't know are there or whatever, but I don't necessarily say I want to fix that thing. And
Yeah.
what I've noticed is that like even if I'm not specifically trying to unwind a specific thing, somehow it unwinds itself as a result of being in that state. Listening to certain music too is the other piece of the puzzle
Mhm.
because music is frequency.
Mhm.
And everything is frequency at the end of the day. We are frequency. So when you're listening to something that is putting off a certain frequency, even smelling something, tasting, listening, seeing things that are certain frequencies,
Mhm.
can really have an emotional unwinding for us that can be so healing. That's the reason that, like, you talk about going outside and getting grounded.
Yeah.
Nature has a frequency of healing like no other. There
Yeah.
is truly nothing like nature. So, like, for me, I could never live in a city like New York City because the amount of nature is very small, and I
Mhm.
know how healing it is for my body
Yeah.
to be able to just go outside and have my feet be bare and I can touch the ground and experience it like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in a city and you're on the ground, it's more probably concrete or asphalt or something man made. And for me, there's just something so healing about the frequency of nature and how it can change how you feel about something in an instant.
For
So,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about my career is learning these kind of things without really learning how impactful they were.
yeah,
One of my businesses, they taught us to do 10 things you're grateful for every
yeah.
morning and every night, and 10 things you love about yourself every morning and
Mm,
every night. And they would have us do the exercises at the event. And there was a lot of people that were in tears and a lot of people that couldn't fill them out,
right.
and a lot of people that needed more time to fill them out, and it's just 10 things.
Yeah,
So, and then 10 things that you were affirming in your life was the last one. And so, just to talk about gratitude for a second, because we've kind of talked
yeah.
more other
I was
two.
just gonna talk about it, so I love that you're bringing it up.
Gratitude can be a simple list, but it's also finding gratitude in things that you don't like. And
Mhm.
gratitude, is a state of mind. And that's why so many people talk about gratitude lists, because you're training your mind to be in that state. So it's not about the
Yes.
list, but about how you're wiring. And so our brain literally has tree branches in it. And when you have like, I believe it's in an MRI scan, but it might be a different type of scan. They can see the branches, and
Yes.
then black branches, and that represents negative thoughts. And I believe they're white branches on the MRI as positive thoughts. And they've actually done studies where they've trained people to be more positive and rewire the brain, and they can watch the black branches dissipating,
Mhm.
and then white branches, once they're completely gone, replacing them. And so it truly is something that you can physically see in your brain. It's also cool that they're branches, they look like branches.
Mhm.
And so that's where it's that state of mind is you want to be grateful enough and like incorporate it in your everyday life enough that those negative tendencies are actually literally being taken away from your brain. Like that's why we call
Yeah.
it rewiring, because
Yeah.
you're literally taking it out, that habit out, that trauma out. You can literally get rid of it and your cells will change. Um, what's the word? Like, you know, when you get like a trigger, what's the word for the positive side of things? There's like
Oh,
someone,
no, I don't know.
oh,
I
maybe
probably do know, but I can't think of what you're talking about right now.
but it's like, I remember like this one lady that I met that was a mentor, and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, look how cute these are." And like
Mm.
she found happiness in everything
Mhm.
because she had trained her brain
Yes,
to do that.
absolutely.
Or you can find
In
negativity in
anything.
everything
Mhm.
because you've been trained that way. And that's usually how we've been trained. And it's usually from our parents and our like surroundings. And it's a really hard one to change because we don't even realize how bad it is because it's our normal.
Absolutely. And you can heal
Hmm.
simply by getting into a state of gratitude. I can't tell you how many people are like, I healed myself from cancer. Or one of my favorite ones that I heard recently, I was at a Dr. Joe event, and this lady healed herself of multiple sclerosis, Ehlers-Danlos. She had COVID issues, like post COVID issues that were like all over the place. She had just a multitude of issues. And she had double vision too. So this is a funny story that goes along with this. But um, she would look at simple things like water, and she would be like, "Oh my God, isn't it wonderful that I have water? It's so nourishing. It's so beautiful." And she would literally just cherish water as she's drinking it. And then
Hmm.
the funny thing with her double vision is she would look outside and she would look at trees and she would say, "Isn't that tree so beautiful? And isn't it so fun that I get to see it twice?"
Hmm. Awesome.
So she was retraining her brain in that moment where she's like, I can't walk. My body's not working the way that it should, because she literally, after she had COVID, her body just completely shut down.
Hmm.
And she couldn't do the things that she could before. In a normal, and I'm putting air quotes up, in a normal person, we would probably go, oh, poor me.
Hmm.
I'm just like nothing's ever going to be the same. So I just have an awful life. A lot of us would start thinking things like that. But she knew that she couldn't do that. So she was like, I'm going to find gratitude in all the things. And as a result, like looking at her, you would never know that she had all of these things going on in her body, because she's not the same person anymore. She's no
Hmm.
longer that ungrateful, upset, poor me person. She's now this, I love my life. I have so many amazing things to look at, and I'm so grateful for everything that I have, regardless of how it came or where it's going or anything. Like, just so
Yeah.
much gratitude for everything. So
Yeah.
it's just beautiful when you grab that.
So that word, I looked it up, it's called a glimmer. So
Mhm.
glimmers are when you see things that um like glimmer you or trigger you into wonderful memories and wonderful happiness. And so that is the encouragement, is rewire your brain. So instead of having triggers, you have glimmers.
I love
So
that.
for New Year's resolutions, get present and grounded or meditate. Pretend you're a tree growing into the ground,
Yeah.
create a grateful list, but then also include it in your everyday of like all day.
Yeah.
And anytime we have a rule with the kids, anytime they complain about something, they have to think of three things on the spot they're grateful for.
Yeah.
And so do that as an adult, that
Yeah.
yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love and accept everything about yourself. And yeah, let this have lots of glimmers in 2024.
Yeah, I'm so with you. Like, let's
Mhm.
change the world by changing us.
Mhm.
That's really at the end of the day, if you want to have an amazing 2024 and beyond, it's really about changing you. And if you are like, I have a massive desire to change the world, change you, because
Mhm.
everything spirals from that. So, with that, I think we can call this one a wrap too. This was a good one. I love this conversation. I
Mhm.
could talk about this all day, every day. But friends, if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like. Let us know what you loved about this video in the comments. And if you're listening to us on any podcast, give us a 5 star. We'd love to hear from you as well. So with that, I'm going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today, and can't wait to hang out with everyone next time.
Happy New Year.